much of life in China is essentially a flirtation with anarchy. Quote from the book Lost on Planet China. Hello everybody, this is Sky. As you may or may not have noticed, I've gone missing for about 5 months on this channel now, but I am back. The reason why I was absent for so long was because I was in China doing an academic exchange at Peking University that is located in Beijing. I'm back in Canada now and yay! I'm gonna make so many more videos for you guys, so stay tuned for those. Today I'm going to give you guys some tips about how to survive in China. So if you guys want to jump ahead or just listen to a certain topic, I will list them around the screen and also in the down bar below. You can click ahead and go to those sections first. Personally, I've lived in Canada for so long that I only have a very vague recollection of how China was before I left and how China is today. As we all know, China is a fast changing country. It's kind of in the transition. I can speak, read, and write Chinese, so I thought it would be a piece of cake for me to thrive and survive in Beijing. However, once I landed in the capital city, I realized that China is more or less of a organized chaos and nothing really goes as planned. So before you go there, you need to, change your mental settings and be able to absorb and accept more of the stuff that's going on there, because honestly, it's on the other side of the globe and it is also very different. Something to be expected, but you don't understand the extent of how different China is from North America until you go there and experience it yourself. So before you depart for China, there's some stuff that you need to do. Example, you need to check if your passport needs to be renewed. I believe the government wants you to have a passport that is valid at least 6 months after you're meant to depart from China and exit the country. Also, depending on if you're going into China for studying or a trip or business, you need different types of visas. So for a student visa, you only get a one-time entry. And I went to China before they started offering the 10-year visa for Canadians and Americans and some other countries. So I only got the one-time entry one. However, once you go there, your host school will be able to renew your visa for you and get you a multiple entry visa with additional fees, of course. However, you need to know that there is a quirk about this type of visa. There is a bit of a tedious rule attached to it for student visas with multiple entries, and that is that you need to exit the country every 30 days. And if you don't, there is a fine applicable to you that is about 500 yuan per day, which is like 100 Canadian dollars per day that you overstay in the country. Now, this gave me more of a reason to travel around Asia and go to Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, so on. But during the academic year, when you're really busy, it is a bit of a hassle to have to drag your ass out of the country and go somewhere else and pay the additional airfare, etc. to just fulfill that one rule. So that is something that you should keep in mind. Also, pay attention to how many entries your visa permits you, because you don't want to exit the country and not be able to come back after. That would be really bad. Upon arriving in China, I had to find myself an apartment. I thought it would take a bit more time with all the bargaining and negotiation that is attached to it. However, I think it took me about 4 days and I was being really picky about them as well. So I stayed in the Airbnb for 4 days. If you decide to just stay in the hotel until you find a place to settle down, one tip that you should know is that you are allowed to bargain with hotels. Unless you're staying at a 5-star hotel where I believe they just don't make any exceptions. If you stay at something more affordable or like a budget hotel of any sort, you can bargain with the owner and try to get yourself a discount. Always try to bargain when it comes to things that are slightly more expensive, like accommodation. Even when you're finding an apartment, you can bargain with your landlord about the monthly rent. So there's 2 things that you should really keep in mind when you're trying to find an apartment. Number 1, find yourself a reliable and nice agent. If you cannot speak Chinese, find yourself an agent that can speak perfect English and Chinese so that they can help you with negotiation and so on. Number 2, pay attention to your landlord. Try to find yourself a nice landlord. I know sometimes it's hard to judge someone's character upon first impression and so on, but you don't know how much trouble you can avoid by getting yourself a nice landlord. In a nutshell, a lot can go down in China when you have a creepy, sketchy landlord. For example, I've had multiple friends who had their landlord or their landlord's representative burst into their house without a warning, just opening the door with their spare key and coming in and doing whatever, like changing the sofa, changing the AC for no good reason without warning. It is very intrusive, first of all, and also disrespectful, but sometimes it does happen just because, like I said before, China is an organized chaos. People don't really go by any rules. But if you get yourself a nice landlord, they know what decency is. Second thing to keep in mind, you also need to get a residence permit once you settle into your apartment. As soon as you sign your contract, try to get your landlord to go to the police station with you or with your formal documents to get yourself a residence permit, and make sure that it is your address on the residence permit, because some landlords have tried to evade taxes by putting on different addresses on the residence permit, because having a foreign tenant means more taxes for them. But if that happens, police might come knocking at your doors, so just make sure that it is really your address on it, and make sure that your landlord is honest and not trying to evade tax, because that is kind of sketchy, and refer to the previous rule, no sketchy landlords. Depending on the region you live in, water, utility, and electricity can be paid in different ways. I believe they give you a rechargeable card and you just need to top it off every now and then and make sure that you don't run out of money, because otherwise it will cut down the electricity and water in your house. So if you're coming into China and you cannot speak Chinese, you're probably wondering about the language barriers. Chinese people are typically not very good at English, I would say. They know a few words now and then, but if you just go speak to a passerby on the streets, I can almost guarantee you that they do not speak English. However, if you go on an academic exchange and you're on a university campus, such as PKU, Peking University, or Tsinghua, I am pretty sure that most students will speak English because they are very well-educated people. So on campus, it's not very much of a big deal if you cannot speak Chinese. However, off campus, it could be a bit tricky to navigate the city and to communicate with people. I think typically in big cities like Beijing and Shanghai and Hong Kong, speaking English alone should get you pretty far. When you go on the subway, there's English translation everywhere, and they broadcast announcements in Chinese and English, so it should be pretty easy and straightforward for you to understand everything. However, I will warn you about the English translation on food menus. Sometimes there is translation and there is pictures, but it could be just a tad bit deceitful. Not really deceitful, it could be just like bad translation or just not very clear what they're trying to get at. So I will be a little bit more cautious about that. If you are obviously a foreigner who cannot speak Chinese, sometimes people will try to overcharge you for anything, any type of service, any type of products or items that they are trying to sell you. For example, these include taxi fares, haircuts, trinkets, souvenirs. So as a rule of thumb, always remember to bargain when you feel like the price is not right. Also, it might take you a tiny bit of time to adjust to the Chinese prices, but at some point you should stop converting it to your country's currency. At first I kept on converting everything to Canadian dollar and thinking, oh, that's so cheap. But in reality, in China, those prices are not cheap. So you just need to kind of readjust and recalibrate your mental price gauge for things in China. About transportations in China. When you're traveling in a given city, for example Beijing, you could either take the subway or the taxi. Those are the two main modes of transportation. So during rush hour, there is some pros and cons to both of them. If you take a taxi, you might move at the pace of a snail and just pay so much more in additional fare because of the congestion. However, if you choose to take the subway, be prepared to be squished and have absolutely no personal space. When you're traveling around China, however, the two main modes of transportation are trains and airplanes. For trains, you need to book your tickets way ahead of time. Also for airplanes too, if you want to get cheap tickets, of course. However, how trains in China work is very straightforward. The more you pay for a ticket, the nicer your train will be. And by nice, it's almost like exponentially nice. The cheapest trains go pretty slow, probably like 200 kilometers an hour. Usually you would get a wooden bench to sit on. If the distance you're traveling is very long, it could take a toll on your ass. It just hurts to sit on those wooden benches. And also there's a lot of people smoking, a lot of people just being noisy all the time, and overall it smells pretty bad. Like you can imagine, it's very cheap, and therefore people who have less income go on those trains. A lot of farmers who are traveling long distance and so on. And it could be a tiny bit unsafe in some cases. Just watch for your pockets. And then there's the trains that are nicer, which go twice the speed of a normal slow train. And then there's the bullet train at the other end. So those type of trains that are a bit faster are all pretty nice, generally speaking. Sometimes you can get a sleeper, which is kind of like a bed on the train if you're traveling really long distance and you want to take a nap and so on. Personally, I've taken all three types of trains, and I would say it's really a cost versus benefit type of trade-off. If it was a shorter distance, I wouldn't mind sitting on the less state-of-the-art trains. But if it was a really long distance, I would suggest you get yourself a nice train and pay the extra money, because it just leaves you more refreshed and less tired once you get to your destination. As for taking planes, it's pretty much just like every other country. However, I would say there is a bit of air traffic in China. If the weather is not nice, you will be stuck in the airport for hours and hours and hours. And it's not necessarily faster to take a plane sometimes, because you need to go through the TSA and do like check-in, check-out, and it's quite tedious sometimes. In China today, pretty much every single person owns a smartphone, and that means that apps are very popular in China. In fact, I would say it's kind of hard to survive in China without a smartphone and without downloading some of the following apps. Since a lot of the search engines and social media websites that we use in North America are blocked by the Great Firewall of China, some of them include Google, Google Maps, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, so on and so forth. You need some alternative apps and social media sites to go on. People in China don't really use text messages, so instead they use WeChat. And WeChat is very useful. The settings do come in English if you cannot read Chinese, so that is very good. People always communicate with it. In most cases, if you ask your landlords, Chinese friends, or colleagues, they probably all have WeChat and communicate via it. So learn to use this app in China and it will make your life so much easier. If you intend on taking the public transit, I would suggest you download the city's Metro app, which is for the subway. The Beijing one is called Beijing Metro. Since Google Maps does not work in China, try out Yahoo Maps or Baidu Maps. If you adore online shopping the way I do, you should visit JD.com and Taobao.com. JD.com in Chinese is called Jingdong and is the Chinese equivalent of Amazon. They do a 24-hour delivery service. So within 24 hours of you ordering something, you can receive it, which is amazing. And they have a super large online catalog of things that you can buy. On the other hand, if you prefer eBay, I would suggest you go on Taobao.com. It is really similar to eBay, and you can do auctions, you can bid for stuff, or you can buy some very cheap goods directly from independent sellers. If you're a big fan of delivery food, I would suggest you get 大众点评 and 饿了么. Those two are apps that allow you to order takeout or delivery from nearby restaurants. Also, some of them offer coupons and deals and promotions and so on, so watch out for those. They can save you a lot of money, and they are also very useful because they rate the services, no matter what it is, if it's a beauty spa, if it's a restaurant, or any type of other services that are available around your area. When in China, you most likely will need a dictionary, and I would suggest you using Pleco. You can get it from the Apple App Store. It's free and it is amazing. It works offline. It does English to Chinese translation and also the other way around. Very, very useful. I adore this app. When you're traveling around China, two apps are very useful are Ctrip and the 12306 app. Ctrip is basically kind of like Expedia, I would say, except that it offers you a wider range of prices and packages and just everything from hotels, airplanes, train tickets, and etc. The prices are very reasonable. However, for the Ctrip app, you will need a Chinese credit card in order to be able to use it. The 12306 app, or 12306.cn, is the Chinese Rail's official site and app. It sounds a little bit sketchy, but that's a real thing. I don't know why some of the official sites in China are in numbers. If you need to search up how many seats are left or how many tickets are left for a given train, you can go on the site to check and also compare prices, time, and you can also purchase the tickets directly from the website or the app. It will probably save you some commission fees. Remember, however, that you also need a Chinese credit card to use this site. So now let's move on to another topic concerning technology, and that is the Great Firewall of China. What is it, what does it do, and what does it not allow you to do? So the Great Firewall of China is kind of like a censorship thing where the Chinese government blocks a lot of foreign sites and foreign social medias from being accessible in China. Some of them I've named before include Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Yelp. Also, Gmail doesn't work in China. Anything Google related doesn't work in China. In order to bypass the Great Firewall, you need to get yourself a VPN, which is a virtual private network. If you get one, it is best that you get one that you pay for because those are a lot more efficient, more effective, faster, and they just overall provide better services. The one that I personally used when I was in Beijing is called PandaPal. It costs about $10 per month, but I think it's completely worth it for you to get it if you, of course, cannot survive without your daily dose of American gossip or just any foreign sites. Because if you go on Baidu and search an English topic into the search bar, it will pop out with a shitload of like really redundant and unrelated topics. English search on Baidu are just not very useful, so you know, just invest in your own internet freedom. Now let's talk about weather and pollution. You know, when typically you're in Canada or the States, before you go out, you would check the weather to see how cold it is, how hot it is, if it's gonna rain. Well, in China, you need to do that, and additionally, you need to check the AQI. Most Chinese cities are very polluted, and the AQI stands for Air Quality Index. It tells you how polluted it is outside. I would say on average an 80 in Beijing is pretty good, but anything that exceeds 100 is like like red alarms blaring. Wear your face mask. And when you get a face mask, get one that has a filter on it, because those flimsy face masks that you wear when you have to cough or you're at the doctor's don't really work against pollution. You need to get a 3M face mask with a giant filter on the side to filter up the air before you breathe it. In Beijing, it rarely rains, but sometimes when it rains really hard. During the summer, there is a lot of sandstorms and smog occurring in Beijing because of the Gobi Desert that is right next to the city. To put into perspective what it looks like, I've experienced only one big sandstorm when I was in Beijing, and it reminded me so much of the pre-apocalypse scenes in the movie Interstellar. Literally, there's sand coming everywhere. The entire place was orange and full of dirt, and it just felt like I was on another planet. So during those times, you definitely need to wear your mask unless you want to inhale a shitload of. Okay, so this is something that you will understand once you're in China and you've experienced the culture and you've been there for a month or two. And that is that Chinese people aren't very good with rules. Rules are meant to be broken, literally, in China. Jaywalking is a phenomenon that happens all over China, and if you ever want to cross the street, you need to jaywalk. Even if the light is green, sometimes taxis and cars will just jet by you. So you need to pay attention not only to the traffic light but also to your surrounding. It's best to move with a crowd. If you're alone when you're crossing the streets, cars pay less attention to you, but when you're with a mob of people, they must. Also, if you don't jaywalk, it might take you about 20 minutes before you can cross any given street. Chinese people love to spit on the sidewalk. It is disgusting and I still cannot get over it. Anytime I hear the like the phlegm coming out of someone's mouth, I just cringe inside. But it is something that occurs everywhere. It is not very sanitary. I will not encourage you to imitate that behavior, but it does happen. Also, younger children who are supposed to be wearing diapers will often just waddle around bare ass around the streets and do their pee-pees or poo-poos on the streets. Once again, not very sanitary, but a norm in China. After all, diapers are quite expensive and not everyone can afford to buy those for their children. This might come as a surprise to us North Americans, and that is that drinking in public is legal in China. So you can wander around the streets with a bottle of beer in your hand or just drinking vodka. No one will care. When you're shopping around China, you will notice that there is a lot of counterfeit products. Just keep in mind that those products are fake and Chinese people don't care about copyrights. They just care about offering similar items for a cheaper price and they think that everyone comes out better off. If you decide to buy those products, remember to bargain. Don't go for the initial offering. That is like the worst thing you can do to yourself. The final topic I'm going to cover is traveling within China. Tip number 1 for traveling in China: don't go with cheap traveling agencies to anywhere on a tour because they will drag you shopping half the time and shopping at really expensive and redundant places like a jade shop or a pearl shop or some local delicacy shop that overcharges you and also just cuts into the time that you have to explore a given city or place. And also, if you do decide to go on a tour, remember to bargain because once again, prices in China are only subjective. They're not something that is set in stone, so try to bargain and haggle with them. Number 2, I would recommend you really going around China and go travel as much as possible because first of all, it is a lot cheaper than traveling in Europe or North America, and also China has a lot to offer. I know it could be sometimes tedious to plan these things out, but refer to your Lonely Planet guide and it will be so much easier. And also, when possible, take the train over the plane because trains are always on time in China and you have assigned seats. It is very convenient and you don't have to go to like the train station 2 hours ahead of time. But do give yourself some time before arriving there because they will do security check and sometimes the line can be pretty long. So that is all for today's video. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it and I will see you guys very soon. I have some more video ideas in store for you and yeah, see you! Remember to subscribe and like.